Hey, everybody, welcome to Sama. I'm Derek Mazzoni. We're based in Seattle. I hope you are well. And if you're not well right now, I hope that changes soon. We've been doing this since the pandemic started, bringing voices to the screen, multiple screens, and highlighting international music. We, as always, we celebrate diversity and we champion our shared humanity. And there are certain artists that are putting out work right now that speak to that in many interesting ways. One of them is a Persian singer by the name of Mamak Hadem. She has done many things. She was the co-founder of a band I've liked quite a bit that I've been listening to since their first record in 1996, Axiom of Choice. And she's continued to release some really powerful work that speaks to her Persian heritage and just speaks to the reality of humanity. She's got a new record out that came out in February on 6 Degrees Records, a label I like quite a bit, called Remembrance, which is in honor of her father who passed. But as I was listening to the record, I was thinking of honoring the passing of so many people that have died due to COVID-19. And this becomes an interesting thing to me because the pandemic is still here. So many people have died, but we're not really acknowledging them. We haven't built a monument. We haven't really presented work to that, like, songs or movies, et cetera. It just feels like this strange blip that we're not really addressing. And, like any of these kind of situations, if you're not kind of addressing it, if you're just suppressing it and putting it down, it's going to come up and bubble up some way, somehow. And I'm not saying that I'm advocating everybody to suddenly treat Sama as therapy. I am advocating for you to listen to artists such as Mamak Hadem and her new record, Remembrance, to kind of feel that out, for lack of a better word, to see if there's a way that resonates with you. Like sometimes you watch a movie and you start crying. You're not crying because of the thing that happened in the movie. Those are actors, but it's something inside you that made you feel like there's something there. So we're going to talk to Mamak Hadem. She gave us this piece of work right now that has the Rumi scholar and translator Coleman Barks on it, which is quite a beautiful treat. She also has Chris Martin of Coldplay on a record. These are great, wonderful artists, and I love to hear their voices. But it's the work herself, the fact that she has this heritage. She's a fellow immigrant. She found her voice early on. She was on the National Radio and Television Choir, Children's Choir in Iran. She came to the United States in 1977. She's obviously Iranian, so she understands the complexity of being Iranian, being an immigrant to the United States. She's also been an educator for most of her life, and now she's focusing on music. So right now, new work from Mamak Hadem. New record is called Remembrance, came out in February on 6 Degrees Records. We're going to watch this, and then we're going to welcome her to Sama. Thanks for being here.
want to be a lover, give up trying to figure the odds on what you should do next. Be a moth, dive off the cliff, become the fearless flame. Live with lovers, tear down your house, wash your heart of any anger, wash it 7 times. Be the wine glass, toast with yourself. You are the wine glass. The wine here is love, this love.
Mamak, hello. Welcome to Sama. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for your kind invitation, Derek. It's a pleasure to be a part of this amazing program. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. How's life?
Life is good. I mean, I am healthy. I think that as I'm like aging, we're all learning that being healthy is the most important thing in the world. Whereas when I was younger, it was about, oh, my work and my music and this and that. So at this time, it's like just being healthy, having a healthy life. And, you know, so life is good. I have to say it's good.
Tell me about the song with Chris Martin. Tell me about that 8-minute piece we just
saw. This song actually features two really important people. First one is Mr. Coleman Barks, who's like a legend, you know, and he's the one who actually, I really have to give him a lot of credit for bringing the thoughts of Jalaluddin Maulana Rumi to the Western world. I mean, he really is a person who I feel in the same way. I mean, it's from the same soul as of Rumi. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to have him. I mean, when I explained to him about the situation, about my father, and the theme of this song in general, the theme of this album, he was generous enough to, you know, to record his voice for me and to translate those two. There's 2 tracks with his voice and do his own translation on that. And of course, having Chris Martin, it's also an honor. I feel that I don't want to be the one to tell him, because then might be like, I'm being biased about this, but I think that his voice on this track is just really gorgeous. And I think that for many people, Chris Martin, Coldplay is like for, younger people, more like, music that it's not a part of like work. Huh?
Youngish.
Youngish.
They've been around for a while.
Yeah, but I think he has like a real beautiful voice for more like world or, even devotional songs and stuff like that. So both of them were very generous about sharing their talents with me on this song. And the song really is centered around the melody that Chris started, singing. We were improvising together. And so then I wanted to have Mr. Jamshid Sharifi, who is who's produced this song for me. He's a really great, wonderful friend of mine. It's my brother. And so he's extremely talented, very extremely intelligent.
But what was the intention behind the song? I appreciate all the people working on it, but what were you when what were you thinking about when putting out?
This song was really just the intention of it was just having a song that people could listen to and go wherever they wanted to go, in terms of like feeling wise, or I know that usually when I listen to a song, I just want to close my eyes and go wherever I want to go. And so that was the intention, because a lot of my work gets more complicated in terms of arrangements, or using my full voice in, doing a lot of embellishments. And so this track, though, I felt like it was more, my intention was to have people as an open space where people could, I remember like closing my eyes and dreaming with songs that when I was younger, which helped me to, be able to imagine, or, have, how do you say that? Like, develop a better understanding, or having artistic views.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, I really don't know.
It's fine. It's fine. So tell me this for a second. So Remembrance is a musical journey to healing the huge loss of my beloved father, Mohsen Kadem. After his passing during the global pandemic of 2020, my grief could no longer be for him alone, but for all of those we lost. Extrapolate on that, please.
Well, when my father got really sick, and he lived back in Iran, and although he was able to come to U.S., he always felt like, that's where his roots were, and he wanted to, spend his old age over there. So, and then after 2009, where there was an uprising, with the Green Movement, and I got, I was very, very involved in that movement out here, in of course, outside of Iran. And so there was an issue of safety for me to go back to Iran. So since like 2009, I have not been able to, I haven't gone to Iran. And that was one of the things that I promised my father, because he was very worried about my safety. And he says, I don't want you to come back here ever. Even if I die, I don't want you to come here. And I was like, of course, laughing at the time, like, things are going to change. I'm going to be going back. And I know that every time I even mention that, he would really get uptight about it. So I decided that I don't want to make this old man, miserable with the idea of like what is going to happen to her if she comes to Iran. So I kept my promise, even though, and then during the pandemic, I was like, for me, it was like, like I said, it's infinite restrictions on, not just pandemic, or it's like political, everything is all mixed up, and I was not able to see him before he passed away.
I'm so sorry.
And so, thank you. And then I was like, during the time, it was, you'd hear on the news how many people were losing, how many people died yesterday, and how many people have got the COVID, all of that, and it's like no longer it was really about my father anymore. You know, it was like everybody is going through this. Everybody is losing someone, and so it gave me that more. Pushed me into actually expressing myself, expressing my. There are times that I was angry. There was times like I was frustrated. There was times that I was just like longing for my father. So it's just a mix of all the emotions that a human could possibly experience during a time where it's not just about one person anymore. There's so many other people who are suffering. And I just felt like that these, because when you were asking about the intentions of these tracks, though I think that that's where I was trying to explain that I was hoping that whoever is going through the same, like going through grief as I'm going right now, hopefully these songs will kind of like give them this support, like, I'm here for you, there's other people here for you, we're all together, we're all, you know, experiencing the same thing.
That's exactly what I was like alluding to. Is that there's a way that this music can bring everybody together, in a way that we're all feeling this cathartic experience, and appreciate you creating it and putting it
Course. No,
out
I
this way.
just, like, yeah, I just bringing together or just being there for people. Like,
Hmm.
I'm there for you, and because music has always been like that for me. I remember when I came to this country when I was a teenager, and without really understanding the language that much, and not really having my whole like my family as my support, I felt like, no friends, nothing. So music was that. And there were like tracks that I can, I remember from listening to it, which was that, the musicians, that track was there for me, for not to feel loneliness or experience,
Yeah,
the loss, like, the abandonment or whatever you want to call it from my country. So, yeah, music has that power. Music can be the best companion,
it can
and I,
and can, and it's also a
yeah,
powerful way to reflect a culture back, which leads me to
exactly.
this point. You're an Iranian immigrant, and there are two ways that people can enter and um, influence culture. And one is, from an immigrant perspective, one is cuisine, the other is art. And there's a significant amount of Persian food. A lot of major cities have Persian restaurants, but
Yes.
there's not enough Persian music. Rumi definitely stands, is an artist that is obviously well known in other Persian poets, but I would love to see more Persian music as a counter to the narrative that we're getting from various government institutions. They're basically simplistic. Iran bad, America good, and Iran has always been this thing.
Terrorist, terrorist.
And it's like, and I've played, everything from, new hip hop coming out of Iran to, digging to traditional music to the period in the 60s and 70s where it was like funk and disco and obviously soul and rock. So, and people are like, this comes out of Iran. It's like, yeah, the things are not trapped in amber. There's a history, there's a present, and there's a future. Obviously,
Exactly.
you've been here since 1977. You're like, I've been here since also 1974, well, 75. And I go back to my home country and I definitely feel at home. I feel different than I do anywhere else because this is where I grew up and this is where I
Hmm.
was born. And people here look like me and talk like me and move like me in an interesting way. But I'm also not of that. I am of America. I've been here too long. It's home for me. Um, as an immigrant, as an artist, as somebody who's taken on this work right now, leaving your work as an educator and taking on this work as an artist, what is the thing that you feel you should or could or want to present of your culture to the general population? Because before you answer, you've got Chris Martin on there. You're on a significant label. It's not like you're playing in the back of a restaurant or a cafe doing your thing, which is beautiful and amazing, and I love it. But you
Yeah.
you now have a voice here. What do you want to do,
Well,
Mama?
thank you for bringing that up because that is a really that's a very important thing for me. Um, as you know, that I was an educator for 18 years, and I taught in schools and colleges. And then when I switched to music, I promised myself that if it gets to a point where I feel like I'm just doing the music to make my living and get by, and I'm willing to do whatever it's like sells, I'm not. I'm going to go back to my teaching job. So that's something that I promised myself that I would never ever do music that I don't like.
Yeah,
And thank God, so far I've been able to keep that promise to
yeah.
myself. One of the reasons, and the main reason actually, that you brought up, that my music has gone this like way of, we say cross-cultural, we say world music, we say fusion, or there are different types of names that or labels for the music that I do. But the 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 real reason behind it for me was that I wanted to say, first I wanted to have like not necessarily have Iranians as my audience, and I think while a lot of Iranian musicians who are still like living in abroad, they're like really focused on the Iranian community, and yes, and they do well. They sell tickets and they have all these.
Yeah. It's a scene.
It's but it doesn't like somebody else going there, who's not Iranian. I'm not really
You feel like, what am I doing here? This is definitely not for me. Yeah.
My goal from the beginning was to really to tap into that audience where it's non-Iranian, and so bring the beauty of our poetry, bring the beauty of the ancient poetry of Iran, of the traditional, some of the classical music of Iran, besides like the food and stuff like that. There's also music that connect us together,
yeah.
And that was definitely a part of my goal to show Iran in a more positive way, and to show it as like, we're like all human beings. We all have the beauty of our cultures. We do have like negative things about our cultures for sure.
Yeah,
but
everybody does. Everybody does.
But it's not like we're not all terrorists. We're all like human beings, and that was like my goal for the longest time. And I think it's become like something that is there. No matter what I do, I always want to talk about the beauty of my Iranian culture. However, I have to tell you, and I need to I'm just being very honest with you, is that for the past so many years, in the beginning, it was still like I was really holding on to that thought. But throughout the years, I feel like that the Iran that I grew up in, and what I have in my mind is a completely different place than what it is right now. From the music that's popular there, from the way I look at the teenagers and the kind of a cosmetic stuff that's being done on like surgeries and things like that with the girls. And it looks like I have no connection to that. I don't know if it's culture, but what it is, like the pop culture or whatever.
Yeah. This is a pretty common story you hear. I mean, Iran is not trapped in amber. It is evolving, and it is changing as the world is changing, and it's difficult.
It's changing, yes, and to some points that I'm not necessarily a fan of, but it is going where it's supposed to go. So, like, I was very much, I must say, I was very prejudiced about even years ago when people talked about Iran. I was like, kind of like very aggressive about supporting Iran and supporting the culture of Iran. As of right now, as I'm getting older, I'm kind of like opening up. For me, every country has like I said, the beautiful things about their culture, and for me right now is like let music be that connection. And let people just be whatever they want. I don't necessarily want to emphasize on my being being born in Iran anymore. I feel like I'm a nomad. I feel like I'm yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Don't go anywhere without me. Dancing in the ecstasy of leaving, soul of my soul, don't go without me. The two worlds are joyous because of you. Don't stay in this world without me. When I'm with you, this world is a joy, and the other world too. As you travel this world and the other, don't go anywhere without me. I am the night. You are the moon in my empty sky. Don't go without me. You are a rose. I am your thorn. Don't go anywhere without me.
خوشخرامان می روی ای جان جان بی من مرو ای حیات دوستان در بوستان بی من مرو بی من مرو این جهان با تو خوش است و آن جهان با تو خوش است بی من مرو این جهان بی من مباش و آن جهان بی من مرو بی من مرو من شبم تو ماه من بر آسمان بی من مرو تو گلی من خار تو در گلستان بی من مرو 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 بی من
This is great. This is great. Tell me about, how did Axiom of Choice come about?
Oh, please. The axiom of choice, it came about because a lot of times we get into the axiom of choice and then we talk about it 2 hours. I'm just going to make it very brief. Axiom of choice came together as Mr. Ramin Logatorkian and I met in we had we were taking lessons with the same teacher here in Los Angeles, and we learned that we were have this kind of like a mutual interest, and we started. And he invited me to come and listen to some of his work. And at the time, I was like, trying to learn the Persian classical music, and going back and forth in summers to learn more about the, working with the masters to learn about the Persian
Traditions, yeah.
traditional music, the radif. And so that was that's how we started. And then as we got more and more serious about working together, it was always like having the two of us would sit down and with a melody, and then he would he was definitely into doing something outside of the tradition, and so he was that sound of the of the fusion, I would say, and I was more of the traditional sound.
Okay.
And so it kind of like was a good match.
It was great. It sounded great. I love the music, and it was fun. And you guys released some records, and
and
it
was always wonderful. It's like I'm really, really. It's good work.
Yeah, it's good work. It's good work. If it wasn't, you wouldn't be talking to me right now. It'd be like, wow, she was horrible. That's not.
Yeah.
No, this is good work. This is good work. I'm glad that you're putting stuff out. I'm glad that you're telling your story. I'm glad that you created this record as a memory to your father, rest his soul, and also to all of those that we have passed right now. It's a very timely record, and I love the fact that you're working with. I like the videos. You're working with an Iranian director, and I love the fact that you're combining these different traditions. It feels right. It feels like also the right time to put something like this out. This more of a mature work instead of just we're talking about Iran and surgeries and everything. It's just like that's fine. It's things are changing. It's a personal work. It tells your story. It tells and it's done in a way that seems to resonate with people. It resonates with my listeners and my viewers. So that's
I
really
appreciate
good work.
that. I'm glad that it does. Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's I'm very thankful to 6 Degrees Records for their
go Bob and Pat.
And and Mr. Sam Javadi is the person that you just were mentioning on the videos. He's done a stunning, great job.
Yeah. Very, 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 very good. Very, very touching. Very there's a lot of same, and this was an interesting new work. So we're going to close with a song, and thank you for your time. I hope you get to tour. I mean, things are still kind of kooky, but I would love to see if we can, even just the West Coast thing, like going, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, etc., where there are, a significant Persian population that will come see you, and then others will learn from that.
Well, we're going to be performing at Skirball Cultural Center on the 21st of July.
Okay. Where's that?
And the 24th, where? Skirball Cultural Center is on the hills going towards the valley in Los Angeles.
Okay, so it's California. Okay.
Yeah, it's in Los Angeles, California. Yeah. And Freight and Salvage, which is in Oakland.
Okay. I hope you get out of the state.
Huh?
I hope you get out of the state.
Me too. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you. Be well. Be safe.
Thanks.
Mamak Hadem, new record is Remembrance, came out in February on 6 Degrees Records. I'll look for that work and continue to please watch Sama, and most importantly, subscribe, like, and share so we can do more of this great work. Thanks again. Be well.